Today I want to talk about Giovanni di Lorenzo. He is the editor-in-chief of ZEIT and also the co-publisher of Tagesspiegel. He has also his own talk show, 3 nach 9, which is aired on NTR, a TV channel of the public broadcaster ARD. Mr. Giovanni di Lorenzo has written an article today in ZEIT that is also a strategy paper, and it allows me to speak about two topics at once, and that is what he tries to convey to his colleagues, and B, and even a bit more important to me actually, how this is done in general, because many people believe that power is conducted through clandestine, behind the scene communiques between the elites that you would not take notice of if you know, even if you would be interested. That is not how it is working. Actually, they want to reach a lot of people at once, even though they mean power leaders. Giovanni di Lorenzo obviously wants to reach members of the parties, of the political parties, as well as people in the theaters, in the newsrooms, all across the country. All cultural and political figureheads should be aware of the direction things are going, and because he is such a high-profile, influential person, some people will take note of what he is saying. So this comes across, this communique comes across as some talk over your glass of wine in the afternoon, your private chattery with your friends and everybody, you know, your dumb teenager thinks journalism is about thinking, you know, who should do what words should somebody use, and but this is not a red wine talk. This is not just some chat. Indeed, this is an actual strategy advice, just masquerading as some lightweight article that's of no big deal to a wider audience, but is still somewhat in the paper. And why do our elites actually choose these communication techniques? I mean, outside of their attempt to reach many people at once, including people who run theaters and low-end cultural projects, like there are so many taxpayer-funded projects that work in schools and in prisons and so on that are supposed to convey people of the right views. These people must be reached all at once. So that's one reason why you should communicate over public channels, or why the elite chooses to do so. But there's also a second element to it, and that is people want to present their faces in public. This is not true with this very article, but it's true with his talk show, for example. He has to host a talk show, not because he has no other means of influence, but he needs to get his face out. And that is terribly important, because you need to build a relationship with the audience. And why do the elites have to put out their images all over the place? Why do you see Angela Merkel so often? Why do they visit each other all the time to have photo ops? Because most of these summits are basically just group pictures and a resolution that has no real life effect and is completely ignored by all members that were present. And this is because when they put their faces out, you and your average citizen sees them as a member of their families, of the tribe. That's a biological fact, and this can also be seen in pop culture. For example, a person that is in the public sphere for ever so long will be defended by his fans, no matter what the accusation is, and they sometimes get really emotional about it.
And said if Britney was a professional, she would have pulled it off no matter what. Speaking of professionalism, when is it professional to publicly bash someone who's going through a hard time? Leave Britney alone!
So now I want to talk about his article, and he advises that the party line, the ideology should not move further to the left. That sounds a bit surprising, but I think he wants to consolidate what has been achieved so far. He does not want to go down the communist road because his paper is often leaning communist. They are talking about Marx all the time. They are using the word capitalism very often as a slur, as it was originally intended. And this is something he tries to tone down as next thing. He writes, and nowhere can it be observed that a decidedly left-wing politics offerings attracts followers of right-wing populists or even mere protest voters. So this is a strategic idea that the populist voters, and with populist I must translate, they always mean just conservatives. That's just another slur they use. But he asks, how can people woo voters of the AfD back to the left-wing parties, and to present ever more left-wing policies is obviously not the way to go. He writes, in America, radical identity politics embracing candidates of the Democrats show such a horrid theater that Donald Trump could win a second term. That is a reference to the Squad. So even he recognizes that the Squad, the party members who resemble his own paper most closely ideologically, are not very well received in America, and he suspects that this is also the case in Europe. His own newspaper had cheered them on from the very beginning, but he now, of course, tries to talk to a different audience than his usual newspaper would. And his papers are in the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez field, and he's probably creating some pseudo-controversy inside the newsroom over this. But he wants to make a larger shift in society. He's not about to change the course of his publication. He is talking to the parties and other publications as to what has to be done, and to present ever more people that look like the Squad and speak of socialism and denounce capitalism is not going to work. And he makes also that statement, who points to the Labour Party in Great Britain must close his eyes to the anti-Semitism that its leader Jeremy Corbyn allowed to flourish. That's a quite interesting quote, because he recognizes that an ever stronger move to the left actually results in ever more anti-Semitism, and that can be seen in Great Britain. He also criticizes that Jeremy Corbyn is so into the own crap that left tells its followers that he almost threatens the foiling of the Brexit. He writes, and his cause against Brexit was about as straight as a captain's on a bottle of Bommerlunde. That's an aquavit. So he recognizes that all this rebellion against the elite, is obviously just show, and Corbyn is so dumb that he actually believes his own crap. The EU is not a conservative enterprise. It is not a free market defending organization. It is a regulatory beast that is to smother capitalism, or what they believe capitalism is, in order to make the system crash for stronger power grip on the economy. And of course, his worries about anti-Semitism are not heartfelt. He just thinks that warning the left of something that happens on the left needs the usual rhetoric. And Jeremy Corbyn is just too much into the everything Muslims do is right stuff that anti-Semitism in one way or another must follow, because it follows from the culture of the Islamic world in one way or another. And the Social Democrats, and as much so their counterparts in England and the US, they have roots in anti-Semitism themselves. So there is this merger, and if these people buy too much into their own shit. They cannot expand their power. So that's why he's warning of anti-Semitism. He does not really want to protect Jews. I don't think he ever cared. The next point he makes is that the rhetoric of the party SPD, the Social Democrats, should change. And my emphasis is here on rhetoric. He does not actually make that emphasis at all, but it is what he means. And he does not say the Greens should do something. He does not say the SED, the party that ran the East German dictatorship, now called Linke, should do something. He is now asking the Social Democrats, because of their strategic role as having a brand that stood for down-to-earth, working-class politics, and he wants them to do the following. I quote, there's also a point the left wing of the Social Democrats don't want to talk about: the need of the workers and low-income demographics for not only social stability, but also for order and justice when it comes to crime and immigration. Of course, his entire publication and he himself is constantly talking about how everybody who speaks about crime and immigration is a Nazi, is a racist, and that we can have no other reason to talk about these things other than an obsession over skin color. That's what his entire publication is about. And he still now asks, not the Tuts, not the Social Democrats, not the batshit crazy theater presidents and other left-wing personalities to do something to pay lip service to conservatives, so to trick the voters into voting for them. He is talking to the Social Democrats because of the brand as a down-to-earth party that cares for the interest of your average worker. He does not want them to do this, of course, because his entire publication stands against it. He wants them to say they care about the safety of policemen and to care about closed borders and regulated immigration and so on. They want the Social Democrats to say this, while the other wings of the left-wing movement are supposed to shriek on with their crazy batshit nonsense. So this is just strategic deception of a potentially conservative voter, so that their voters move over to left-wing parties. Not that these policies would ever follow. Now he praises two prime ministers, one of the state of Brandenburg and one of the state of Saxony. He writes, Kretschmer and Wittke. Kretschmer is the prime minister of Saxony, and Woidke, the prime minister of Brandenburg. Kretschmer and Woidke picked up the fight over the substance matter, which is difficult to win for the populists. Again, that is the conservatives. They have only appeals to emotions in store, no matter the facts. Kretschmer in particular, but also apparently this Woidke person that I have not really heard of before, they are praised for their good campaign, because they were out there talking to a lot of people face to face. And this is to build trust. In America and Great Britain, because of the direct voting system, politicians rely on personal contact. This is unusual here in this country. So it is praised explicitly that these people talked to the average voter at all. And there was a lot of fuss made about this revolution. What is interesting is that he says in the direct conversation, the populists would have no chance. And this is just only the war morals aspect of it. He does want to present the own side as stronger anyway. No matter what happens on the battleground, you will win anyway. Just believe in yourself. Of course, it's ludicrous that in a direct conversation, the left would win against conservatives. They are eschewing direct conversations for a good reason, and that is because their arguments are weak. And then, of course, he says the most ludicrous thing: they have only appeals to emotions in store, no matter the facts. So, because we don't have any talk radio, no Fox News, no sizable internet publications, the left is free to make the most ludicrous statement stuff that MSNBC wouldn't even dare. The claim that it is conservatives who appeal to emotions and the left were this logical, rational atheist.
I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day. And then I want you to act. I want you to act as if you would in a crisis. I want you to act as if our house is on fire.
And then he discusses what he actually tries to go to. And that is despite his claim that the left is on the rational side and can win over the logical argument. He actually tries to say to his colleagues that you have to present a batshit crazy theory as if it was the most down-to-earth relatable thing, right? And so he tries to introduce again what he started to move away from at the very beginning. Okay, we go into communism a bit. Okay, so a bit communism, but we will present it differently. So to make sure to all of his colleagues that after the very first sentence they had half a heart attack, that he is leaving the good communism. He is assuring to them that he is still on board. And that is, he writes, however, a lot speaks to the idea that people move to the right in uncertain times, and that albeit capitalism has become so vulnerable. And that word for vulnerable is more like attackable. So in times when you would think that communism finally makes it, the population moves to conservative parties. And that is to ensure, yes, the long game is the abolition of free markets, freedom of association, freedom to contract with whom you want, freedom to exchange your goods and property, your property rights, all of these things. The long game is the erection of a dictatorship. Yes, sure, but you don't want to sound like this. So while he first said, okay, for now, don't present this to the wider audience, he kind of lapses out of this for a second to make sure to his friends he's still on board, and then he goes to the topic that he wants to speak about. You have to veil it under a cleaner tone. You don't want to upset people. You have to boil the frog slowly, right? So he writes, a remarkable paradox. The party, and here he means the Green Party, with the darkest issue, the threat of world destruction, has found representation in Robert Habeck and Annalena Baerbock. They are the two party leaders, with the best mood and the fewest quarrels. So what he's saying is this party that actually has a psychedelic campaign and is now presenting no public uttering that goes against other members of the party in the media. That party is a forerunner as how to introduce batshit crazy nonsense to wider public. He's right, the Green Party has understood best how to manipulate the public. Unlike in America, the campaign finances go almost exclusively into posters, and the Green Party posters are all full of animals and baby pictures. No joke. For the next generation, you see a baby. For happy animals, you see cute duckling or whatever. You see cute animals, cute children. They and all in psychedelic design. There's this garish swirl of colors that hits you whenever you come across something that the Green Party does. And their leaders, they are all like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on steroids. I mean, Cortez looks like a genius in comparison to Annalena Baerbock. They are all like Jill Stein. I mean, not all, but the majority, they are always smiling, always speaking very calmly, and you wonder really if they can process what they say while they are talking, and they hardly blink. And you wonder if their brains had been crashed out of their skulls. It's ludicrous. But this appeals to the wider audience, apparently, and they are never criticized in the public, no matter how dumb it is, the stuff they put forth. And it is even crazier than the shit Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says. I mean, that really means something. But these people have an enormous influence. They hardly can count, but they are very friendly. So he writes, the acceptance of the Greens has its foundation in overcoming the separate mental draws for left and right, moderate and radical, and the tone is palatable. The word for palatable is actually wrongly chosen. He uses a word that means something like reliable. You can trust somebody who is verbindlich. That's the German word he uses. But he means the tone is nice. So they are nice people, and they have overcome the division, because now everything that used to be conservative is now suddenly also nice. The churches are now very nice, very nice. They just preach climate change now, and they preach gay marriage and stuff, and they hardly mention Jesus anymore. This is the work of the Greens, and there was an infiltration going on. But it is not that the division has actually disappeared. It is only that you don't see conservatives anymore, and when they do appear in public, they are harassed. And even though he had claimed that conservatives were about appeals on emotions, and the left is about rational discussion-winning thinking, he then concedes not every emotion is an aberration, and not all fears vain. Well, that's a surprise, isn't it? He writes, if you only appeal to rationality, you won't reach the hearts of the people. That's why democratic politicians with charisma could be so important. And this is what he tries to convey, and I believe this is now going to happen. So to wrap it up a bit, he wants the Social Democrats to appeal to conservatives by saying they are handling now the security issue and the immigration issue. He wants communists to put their main topic aside for a moment and speak a bit more about environment, feminism, and so on, but assures to them that he's still on board. He also wants everybody to follow the Green Party lead in just being very smiley all the time, and not to present their views too clearly while being clear on the subject, but not in the presentation of the subject. And his main point, this is what he's now making, is that he wants a charismatic person or more charismatic people in politics, and he means in the Social Democratic Party and in the Union, in Angela Merkel's party. He used one prime minister, the Prime Minister of Saxony, as an example, because he shows that this down-to-earth personal approach, becoming likable, is crucial to somewhat win an election. He barely won the election, by the way, but he actually did win. His party became the largest one, and win is always relative in this strange election system. But he did a good job, I have to concede that. And he wants that example to be taken by his fellow party members and to build up a charismatic figure. Now I see who that could be. Okay, I'm speculating here, and I'm not going to say that I'm looking into a crystal ball now, but he could build up Diana Kinnert. I have made an entire video about her because I think she will be pushed onto the main scene at some point. She is an infiltrator who always advises the party to take on more Green Party policies whenever they have lost an election. So her explanation why the party has lost an election is always because they have not yet found an answer to climate change. They are not yet behind every animal rights activist and so on. So that is an infiltrator of the Green Party that will soon be promoted like a media star. You will see the rise of a second Greta Thunberg, maybe not as big because she is a child and really it needed some factors to come together in her case, but you will see a massive rollout of media attention to promote this woman, because she will tell all these conservative institutions that they must become more urban, more Green Party-like, to streamline with the mainstream ideology. Thank you for listening, and leave Brittany alone.